news. We have an interesting week. We've had an interesting week so far. Trust everyone is doing well. Depending on where you are in the world, rates are coming down. Some places FX is going bad or getting worse. But yeah, we're all here, alive and grateful. My name is Ola. I'm the founder of the Money with Club, and basically we host these sessions every Saturday, GMT plus one at 9 a.m. And the focus is on the economy, the news, and how it affects your pocket. So I welcome you. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe and hit the notification button so you hear and we know when we're live. Now, what we do is that we discuss global, Africa, and then Nigeria news. And we just discussed the news and how it affects your pocket and what you should be doing going forward. And we have some interesting news. And I think maybe I'm going to switch it up. Usually I start from global to Africa to Nigeria. So maybe I'll switch it up this time. I'm going to start from Nigeria. And like I always talk about on my channel, my job is to explain personal finance, economy, and investing in simple English. So I'm going to talk about some news that we've been seeing during the week in Nigeria. Nigeria's money supply hit 107 trillion in August 2024. Um, and I'm sure a lot of people see that. I'm like, what does that mean? Especially when there's no money in my pockets. And so I want to break it down now because it does have financial implications. It does affect you. And when you see it does affect you, and then when you see this news, you need to know what it means and what you should be thinking about for yourself, for your future, for your investments, and for your business. Right now, what is money supply? Money supply is basically the amount of money in circulation in different forms. I forgot to add that if you are listening in, I see people listening in, please state your name and where you are joining in from. You're welcome. Now, money supply is basically the money in circulation. Now, why is this important? Why is this a data so important that is making headlines and everybody's talking about it? Because the amount of money in circulation impacts the growth of the economy. Now, if you ever saw in the news abroad to make you relatable, where there were those stimulus checks that were paid out to people, that people were announcing were government checks, if you saw that, or if you heard about quantitative easing, what were they doing at those times? They were saying, let's push money into the system so that when there's plenty of money in the system, right? People can spend, and when people spend, the economy, then businesses are alive, and as businesses are alive, people are paid salary, there will be jobs, and it just becomes that ripple effect. So the amount of money in circulation actually matters because that is like the beginning of the trend of economic growth. Now they are shouting that money supply in Nigeria hit 107 trillion and it has grown like 65% in the past 1 year, blah blah blah, all that noise. Now, why is this important? Because it's almost contradictory. You have money supply increasing, meaning that let the economy grow. But you now have the central bank saying, no, I want to increase interest rates to slow down inflation. So what is happening right now is that money supply is high, and because money supply is actually significant, and I'll talk about where it came from. What you're seeing is that the central bank is struggling to have an impact in their um monetary policies. No matter what you say, if you take up interest rates to 27, 30, wherever, 100, and there's too much money in the system, the fact is that too much money with low supply, inflation is still going to go up no matter what interest rate you want to do. That's the first thing. Now, another thing also that it impacts is the fact that when there's too much money in circulation and there is a lack of confidence in the economy, what happens? People move that money into FX. So we see it in FX also. Now, where did this money come from? That is the question you want to ask because we're not seeing it. Now, when you hear that the central bank, or no, that the Ministry of Finance uses ways and means, and we talked about it last week, you can check the replay from last week. When you hear that central bank or the Ministry of Finance uses ways and means to pay for, to service our debt, either to pay coupons or interest or to pay back, actually, what they are actually doing is they're just carrying money and printing. On a normal day, what should happen is that the money raised from revenue, taxes, export proceeds, that means real cash, is supposed to be transferred to pay for these things. So there's no money being created. But when there's no revenue to support it and you just create money and credit people, what you have done is you have increased money supply without any economic activity supporting it. In the end, because there's really no economic activity supporting it, you will find that it will push inflation up. And that is what we are seeing. So the first thing is that yes, money supply is high. And the fact is that it's probably going to be high for a while. There's also a number that you should look out for, the amount of money in circulation, the amount of money out of the banks. That means how much cash are people holding, like in actual cash. It is very important also because it tells you how much control the central bank has over the economy. The more money we have out of in cash, the less impact an increase in interest rates or a drop in interest rates will have on it. So that you understand, in the economies where, like in America, where they are cutting rates right now, what you would see is that when they cut rates, you feel it in your credit card because you're not holding cash. You'll feel it in your credit card rate. You'll feel it in your savings rate. You'll feel it in your mortgage rates, right? But in an economy where people are paying for property with cash, whether the rate goes up or not, it does not affect their behavior at all. So if you see that rates are cheaper and it's cheaper, your credit card rates have come down, what does it gives you that energy to say, okay, I can actually buy that shoe that I didn't think I needed to buy or I could buy before. Why? Because I can afford it better. But if there's no transmission between the economic or monetary policy and your pocket, meaning that whether interest rate is up or down, I'm not benefiting from it, it doesn't affect me in any way, then guess what? You have weakened the impact of the central bank, which is what we are struggling with in Nigeria right now. Oh, hi. Hi, Tommy. I see some people, right? So basically, when you see, hello, Hillary, been a while, long time. And so when you see this number, right, just understand that if you are seeing monetary supply increasing and you are seeing that the central bank is still trying to tighten, there's an inconsistency, and most likely where you would see the impact is in inflation, aka prices are still going to keep rising. But when you start seeing that monetary supply come down, right, or stabilize, then you can now say, okay, maybe things might be getting better. Yeah, it's an indication, right? It's a leading indicator of what's going to happen in the near future. That's on one side. Now, on the other side, also, when you now begin to see that the central bank is also aligning, meaning the central bank is cutting rates and money supply is good, what are they saying? Let the economy grow, let people begin to spend, right? That's what you would see in other climes as you begin to see that reversal. And I think we're moving to Africa after this. But basically, when you see this thing in news, I understand that people, you just see, I'm like, okay, what does this mean? Well, I move on. But it has implication. Money supply is a major indicator of the togetherness of the economy, and the control of the central bank on the economy. The less money we have in cash, the more the central bank can control what happens using tools. But the more money we have in cash, the less that the central bank can do, which is why all those cashless policy things were important. But we seem to have lost that focus because there seems to be a lot of printing of cash. And that place that cash came from is really paying all this grants, all these provisions, cheap money, blah blah blah, trader money, all those things. Those are the things, and they are actually fueling inflation because there's no economic activity that is supporting it. It's just really creating, printing money. Yeah. So know that economics 101 for the day. Then we move on to, and please, if you have questions around this, thoughts, please drop it in the comments. I'm happy to post them up and all, and add them to the conversation. Then we're going to Africa news. Ghana was in the news this week, right? For two things. One, they've cut their rates, and they cut their rates significantly. If you do not know, they moved their rates from 29% to 27%. They dropped their rate. So they had dropped, the same way Nigeria has been taking rates up, Ghana has also been taking rates up. I mean, I think it was a global thing. It's not just those two countries, right? But what has happened is that Ghana dropped rates. They didn't just drop rates like the Feds of 0.5%. No, they said, let's do it and do it large. 200 basis points. 200 basis points is 2%. 200 basis points is finance talk, but it's basically 2%. So they dropped from 29 to 27. Now, what does this imply? It implies that if you were holding any asset, right? Let's say holding an asset at 18% in Ghana, and that 18%, the price was 100. Eh? By the time that price, everybody's going to reprice downwards. So that 18% is going to become 16. But You might not understand that if you're a member of the club, I can explain. We've talked about this invest relationship, blah blah blah. So join the club, yeah. But long and short of it is that at that 18, if the price was 100, at this 16, that is going to drop to 200 basis points, the price is going to be like maybe 105, 106, 107, depending on the tenor. What does that mean is that if you are talking about 100 million CDs, you would have made 7 million in profit. Yeah. So you see this thing that we're talking about that rates are going to start coming down is a cycle and we're getting to the end of that high interest rate cycle, right? Anybody that was able to buy into that interest rate cycle, the high interest rates, as rates begin to come down, they just begin to bank their profits. I dare say that it is just starting and to be a global trend. The Feds have given guidance on, I mean, you need to be following this thing consistently because we are building up on conversations, assuming that you were following us from last week and the week before and stuff. So maybe go and binge watch on our live conversations in the past. Like just keep going back and back and back, and you begin to understand these things, right? So the Feds have cut rates and they've given guidance that are going to do another 0.25% this year, and then they're going to keep going up. I think they gave guidance up until 2026, right? Now, what does that mean? That as the Fed is also cutting, you will just see that it begins to flow around the world. And people that were brave enough in the time of drought to actually invest will be better off for it. But I dare say that it's just starting. So it's not too late to start if you have been dragging feet or if you did not have liquidity, because that also does happen and is valid, right? If you did not have liquidity at that time, then I mean, it's not too late. And then I also dare say that when it comes to investing, it's never actually too late. Um, what I mean by that is that when you wake up, you start. There's always an investment that is viable at that time. And some people do say, I dare to agree with them that the best companies have not yet been created. The best solutions, the best investment opportunities are still ahead of us. So don't say I missed it, therefore let me just sit down and hold my money. No, it's not that. At least you will get good interest. 18 might be higher than 16, but 16 is also higher than 14. Like I said, we are just starting. So if they are at 16, there's a chance that it can go to 14, 13, 12. It can even go to single digits. That has happened in the past. So it's not too late to start. And if you don't know where to start from, please join the Money with Club. Let me just drop the link here so you can see. Yeah, straightforward. And if you have questions, please ask us. Now, finally, global news. Um, on the global scene, this was just for us to highlight things that happen, things that affect our pocket that we do not, what's it called, realize how it happens, right? Now, there was some news that there was a port strike. Basically, the ports in the East Coast, they were protesting. They wanted to renegotiate their pay, blah blah blah, and so they shut down for 2 days, and then they've opened back up. Now, you might say, okay, some people are protesting in America. What impact does that have on me? It does have impact. Why? Because if, for example, they were supposed to be exporting something to your country, let's say you're in Kenya, and they're supposed to be exporting a good that was going to that could get rotten, like it had to move by a certain time, blah 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 blah, and it got caught in the middle of this. You know that singular move and the fact that there's a backlog right now that needs to be resolved, such that even the things that are going to get to the port today might be delayed by a week just because of that singular move, because they have to be rearranging. You know that singular move can create a scarcity in Kenya, can create a scarcity in Namibia, can create a scarcity anywhere. That is actually how it happens. That's on one side. On the other hand, from an investor perspective, so you see how these things happen. Now, say for example, there was an exporter, like you exported something, you are in Greece, you exported a product to um, America, right? And it was supposed to land in that port. The fact is that some products have been dumped in Canada. If you read the news, like some product, the shipping company cannot hold on to it. I can't get to the port. I have to drop it somewhere, right? So imagine if your product from Greece lands in Canada when it's supposed to be in America. Yeah. Imagine the logistics of you finding that product and then finding a way to get it back to redirect it to where it should go to. Yeah, especially at this time when everybody's in that same situation. So what generally tends to happen is that the company might be at a loss. The people that are supposed to receive it might be part of their supply chain to do something. That company is also in a mess, right? And looking for a backup. Now, there's an insurance company who the exporting company might be able to call on and say, okay, this thing did not get to where it was supposed to go to. Please cover my insurance. Please cover whatever me, right? They'll take a few months, they will pay. But guess what? The exporting company, the receiving company, and the insurance company, if they are all listed on the exchange, all their stock prices are going to come down. That is how it happens. So a lot of times when we see these things and you just realize there's news, the pot, whatever, whatever, and then you just start seeing, oh, this shipping company, the stock price came down. This whatever. Why? Is because there are analysts that study those companies and they know their supply chain distributions and they understand the implication. It sounds deep, Abby. You understand the implication of this to this company. And maybe what if, for example, random, they only do one shipment a month, meaning that their sales for this month has been impacted. And maybe supposed to be their best month. Do you understand? Can you just see how these things happen? So one of the things that we do in the club is that we over time begin to understand the companies that we are investing in. Why? Because it is important when you understand the companies that you will know when it's time to jump ship. You know when it's a temporary problem. You will know when this one matter has passed, whatever. Do you get? And these things matter. Now, I know that a lot of people always believe that, oh, somebody should be doing this thing for them. I always say you can't outsource your health and your finances. You have to engage. What that means is that nobody can go to the gym for you and you will lose weight. That's not, can someone eat vegetables and you'll be slim and healthy, or you will get the benefits of the vitamin, whatever, whatever, right? It's the same way with your finances. So, as much as I'm not expecting a doctor to understand finance the way I do, um, on the other hand, I the same way when I'm talking to a doctor, I also need to understand their thinking so that I'm sure that I'm in safe hands or I'm sure that I should be running. It's the same way you also need to understand your finances because you will retire, but finance is gonna be with you. Even when people pass, finance is gonna be with you. You need money to bury somebody. Yeah. So on this note, I just want to say thank you to everyone that listened in. I see people, you all didn't say hi, but I see you all. Thank you for joining and have a beautiful week. See you next week.